So, welcome to the main cut. I am your host, Jade, and I'm really looking forward to today's chat. I'm here with our guest, Anthony Dickey, who is an author, celebrity hairstylist, founder of Hair's product line and textured hair salons in New York, LA, and Atlanta. Dickey has worked with the likes of Solange, Alicia Keys, our First Lady, Michelle Obama, and his styles have been featured in countless magazines from the likes of Vogue to Vanity Fair to Essence. And today we're really blessed to have Dickey join us for a conversation about his journey into hairstyling and to get an insight into his knowledge on textured hair. So Dickey, welcome to the show. And yeah, we're really excited to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I love to talk. I love to share.
Well, we're sure all of our listeners will love hearing what you have to say. And I think a great place to start.
My favorite thing is that you said Michelle Obama, our first lady, because she's all of our first ladies, right?
She is.
Go ahead.
Oh, she is. She is. She still is our first lady.
Right.
But for those who are like new to the industry, don't know much about you and your journey, it would be great if you could start by telling us a bit about how you got into hairstyling. Like, where did it all start?
Oh my God, I was pumping gas in Arizona at the age of 18. And I was clearly not an academic. But you know, when you're young, like the world is yours. I came, my dad, the most encouragement he gave my brother and I was don't go to jail and get a job.
Oh,
So I was like, okay, reverse psychology. I want the world, whatever that is. And okay, what that really meant was take your butt to work and stay out of trouble, right?
yeah.
And so I had a cousin who had done hair, and my aunt did hair, and I was like, sure, I'll do that. And so I did that. You know, it's interesting because the first thing, my biggest fear was like, what am I going to talk about to people? Right. And so that was in 85. And so I'm doing this about 39 years. And in hindsight, what I can recall was that in entering the beauty category, what I really wanted to get into and didn't know it until about 3 or 4 years in was I wanted to get into the beauty part of it, the editorial part. So I moved to New York from San Francisco in '89 to work with Orbe. And so I came here with that purpose, and so you're entering into like kind of the capital of fashion and beauty, which was New York at the time. You know, you discover some disturbing parallels to my generation, and you know, I can recall at a very early age with my cousins in Oklahoma that you couldn't any black people couldn't go into the front part of the restaurant. We had to go to the back. Um, and you discover some disturbing parallels when you enter into the say the industry that you've chosen. You start to see some similarities, right? And I think it's in any sector of our industry that you come into. You as a black person or person of color, you walk through life noticing things, right? And similarities into discrimination. And so for me, looking at the industry, it was just like you shop down this aisle and you shop down that aisle. I thought that was so weird. Um, really, in hindsight and looking back all these years later, it was this need to make a shift or an impact into the industry that I had chosen with what was in front of me. Having the platform of New York City and some of our fashion Bibles like Glamour, Vogue, Bazaar, Essence, and if you get an opportunity, don't squander it away. So for me, it was not about really necessarily reinventing the wheel, but looking to where I can make a change in that segregated aisle.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, there are other industries where you feel it, but hair care is one of those where you can see the division. You know,
Right.
when it comes to products, it's like you find one set of products for textured hair, another set of products for European hair, and
Yeah.
it feels like we're getting to a point where things are becoming more and more specialized, which in some ways, doesn't feel like a bad thing. But
Yeah.
do you believe that there can be products that really cater for both and it doesn't matter?
Oh, absolutely. I think that was probably the funnest part of getting into the consumer packaged goods um, was the marketing part of it. Like, right? Like, we used to have a random shelf and we used to have the usual suspects and some random drugstore back in the day where there was same greases, and
Mm,
some dusty old shelf, and the so-called black aisle or ethnic hair care aisle was a shelf. And it had the usual suspects of all the notable greases that we've all grown up to know about, whether it was Sulfur 8 or Royal Crown or Vita.
mm,
Um, and it was really interesting to like see, like I said earlier about, like I'm not about reinventing the wheel. The more
mm,
challenging and real clever way for me was like, how do you talk about a product or a brand that is inclusive of everybody? And I
mhm.
think the closest brand that I've observed was Pantene, right? Um, and they weren't really hitting the mark. They were just saying they had a line for texture.
Yeah.
2008 when we started our line Hair Rules. It was really Hair Rules was based after a book that I authored in 2003 called Hair Rules: The Ultimate Hair Care Guide for Women with Kinky, Curly, Wavy Hair. Right at the beginning of the natural hair movement, and so we'd gone to a few trade shows prior to launching the brand and going into R&D, and I went to a Pantene uh, breakout session, and literally a white woman, an Asian woman, and a
Mm,
Latin woman and a black woman got up one right after the other and said, "We discovered that so and so women were looking for hair care and beauty, and so we decided to make a line for them." So if you were Asian, you was like, and we decided to make a line for them.
ah,
But they rolled them out in ethnicity, right? And so, what an
mm,
archaic ideal of basing marketing off of ethnicity.
mm,
I identify as a black man. At a glance, I look like a white man. And
mm,
so, what if I look a certain way, but I don't identify black? Or what if I'm a black person, but I have wavy, curly hair?
mm,
How are you going to talk about my ethnicity if you've overlooked my texture?
mhm,
I remember when I first started, some people were like, I was kind of doing a little bit of exploratory conversations with people in the beauty industry that I came to respect and know. And they're like, well, what's your product going to be for? I was like, well, it's going to be for everybody's hair texture.
mhm.
Well, but no, because black women need something just for them. I was like, okay, I have something just for them. Like, yeah, you know, and of course the what we were shown in beauty and advertising were all always white women with straight hair, right?
Yeah,
So I was like, I got something for her too. Like she's been my clientele. Like,
yeah,
um, and so I was like, well, what exactly that? Like they need something. Everybody would, based upon their hair texture, wants something customized and specific to their
mm,
hair texture, not someone else's.
mhm,
And how do you speak to them? Well, you have to have education. And as you very
yeah,
well know, over the last 20 so years, the education takes it exists on the World Wide Web, for influencers and or the regular just stay-at-home mom or an influencer that, is wants to share her story, because that's really where the natural hair movement began. It began on the World Wide Web, right? Where there weren't there weren't barriers for people to have conversations and for women, particularly Black women, to share their stories and say, you know what, my hair texture is not bad. It's not unkempt. It's not unclean. It's not unprofessional. Girl, my hair texture
Yeah.
this, that, and the other. And how awful. Like he just didn't want to relax he just wanted me to keep relaxing my hair. And it's just like, so you understand and realize and listening to those stories that they're dynamic and the challenge is one, who was a player? The
Mm-hmm.
consumer. The consumer
Mm.
and innately something about her hair texture was not bad. So she's demanding something different. And unfortunately, the
Mm.
gatekeepers of the industry, hairdressers, weren't there to meet them.
Mm.
Because we grow, we start school. There's not a, for the most part, for any professional who wanted to go to school to get a license to do hair, half of the textures were never mentioned in the textbooks in theory class, right?
Yeah.
Guess what two chapters they were mentioned in?
Oh,
Ambiguous. The
no.
thermally straightening chapter and the chemically straightening chapter. Well, we know they're not talking about straight hair.
Oh, wow.
So those are the only two chapters that kinky or curly textures were ever ambiguously mentioned.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
we have an entire industry of hairdressers who, and I always hated this industry, and I do mean hate because it's such a gimmick-driven industry. Go to a hair show and look at the shit that walks up on that stage. Now, if your clients ain't walking out their door with that stuff on their hair, they want someone to care about their hair, right? Am I right?
Yeah. They want
Like,
somebody to care. And it's also like that knowledge piece. It's, what you
yes,
said about them being knowledgeable, being educated, and with products, it feels like you said it's gimmicky, but then it's also like understanding what's in them. Like what is the formulation of these products? I'm sure there are products that are out there that can be for all hair textures, but how do we as consumers understand when we're looking at the back of a bottle
yeah.
this thing is going to work for us, or
Well,
it's something
yeah,
worth trying.
yeah. Unfortunately, the products came before the education. And
Mm.
so it's kind of like the cart before the horse. And
Mm.
now women go down the rabbit hole with trying these, a plethora of products. And there's some really good products out there that I even love. I think Hair Rules is the best because I designed it thinking of this texture versus that texture, what would work good on that texture and also work on this texture, and
Mhm.
and how many of these lines that are out there currently where a hairdresser that is well versed in every texture, which is very rare,
Mhm.
is formulating products for every hair texture. That's the
Mm.
sweet spot. Now, how do you get there? So there's, if you want, are you a hairdresser? No, you hairdresser.
No.
So for instance, if you wanted to do a product line, you simply go to a lab,
Mhm.
tell them you want to do a line because you got the money, and you'll do a product line based off of your understanding of your hair, not someone
Mhm.
else's. Am I right? And which is
Mm.
going to be a shampoo, a conditioner. It might be a curling product or a leave-in conditioner. But
Mhm.
so that's the point I'm trying to make is that depending upon who you are and how well versed you are in texture will
Mhm.
determine what that line and how it works for everybody. Or you
Yeah.
can cherry pick a product from each line that you like, go have it reverse formulated.
Mhm.
But who has the knowledge to curate a product line that has enough knowledge?
Yeah.
Me.
But that's what we need to see more of. I feel like
Yeah,
the hair industry, especially like textured hair, a lot of what we see a lot of people doing is DIY. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. We've gone through a
no,
period like COVID where people they had no
yeah,
choice, they weren't able to be as connected with their stylist. They had to go out of their way to learn and educate themselves. And
yeah.
it's great to gain a certain level of understanding.
I
But
love that part of it. Yeah,
yeah. And
but
I think, yeah, the but, the but, what we don't see, I think, enough of is having those conversations with hairstylists who are super knowledgeable, who can impart enough so that, when we're by ourselves, we
yeah,
can look after our hair well enough and then come back and it's not a mess. It's
yeah,
more of like, okay, I
yeah,
want to do this with my hair, you
yeah.
know, to have an idea of what that hair journey looks like with a stylist. And I feel like that's really missing at the moment. Um,
Yeah, I think the challenge is that in that for, say, a professional hairstylist is that, think about it. Like a hairdresser, I know what I know. They know what they know, and they're the
mm,
best at what they do, and that's what they are. That is how they are generating income. That's what their business affords them,
mm,
and so think about the challenge in a hairdresser all of a sudden telling a woman who he's been tweaking her texture with chemicals or wearing it a certain way but
mm,
she's like, you know what, I want to be natural and I want to learn how to do with my hair and let
mm.
it more, and it's just like, the unfortunate thing is that most women are walking around with the limitations of their hairdresser, with hairstyles
Mm,
based upon the limitations of their hairdresser. And
mhm.
so that's the unfortunate thing. Um, but I think there's still a handful of hairstylists out there who might be getting it right, but and they should, because there's enough information, even if they went down the rabbit hole on YouTube. Um, but that was really where the angle that I took with Hair Rules was offering a product line based upon education,
Yeah,
um, and giving a woman agency over her hair so that she could get salon results at home. And
yeah.
come to see me for your quarterly haircuts, um,
Mhm.
and understand what this new salon experience should look like, which is, it's about you. It's about listening to your story,
Mhm.
not me assuming anything, asking a series of questions that would give me more knowledge about how much you know about your hair back to your first relaxer when you were maybe 6 or 7 years old, um, and then what you went through, what was college like, and
Mhm.
how did you switch your hair up then, and I think professionals or stylists simply need to trust that, like, talk to your client about what you don't know about.
Yeah.
She's not, once you because you've got her confidence,
Mhm.
that real bond between a hairstylist and their customers, is a valuable one. So, if she's telling you that she wants to go natural, or she wants to learn how to do some other things to her hair, well, why don't you both go down that road of discovery,
Yeah.
and just try it, because if you do that, she's not going anywhere, because
Mm,
she knows that she's being heard, she's being
mm.
listened to, and she's got a confidant in you that, based upon, and you'll learn something much quicker than as you just to try to avoid um that journey with her, and she's gonna find another hairdresser, trust and believe, or she's just going to keep her own tore up hair to herself and never go to another hairdresser. I've got many clients who haven't had a haircut in 4 to 10 years. Why? Because
Wow.
they'd much rather have their own hair. They'd much rather tear their own hair up than have somebody else do it. And I understand
Yeah.
that's an awful thing to actually go to a beauty spot and have somebody tear up your hair. Come on, that
Yeah.
makes no sense.
Yeah. And it's the
So,
experience of so many.
oh,
And
right, yeah,
so many people, and I feel like it speaks back to like that education piece. And it would be great to know more, a bit more about like your education journey and like
yes,
where that started and how that's influenced your career, as because you've done like the work with celebrities, the work on editorial, you run your own salons. So to do all of that and work with like the myriad of people that you've worked with, education must have been key.
it was, but it was also just becoming cognizant and
Mhm.
aware of the world that you were in, and seeing where it wasn't getting it right. And I go back to that, I don't have
Mhm.
to reinvent the wheel. Just see where historically things that have been told to black women, how true and untrue they were.
Mm.
You know, um, be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of some of the things that you've been led to believe, that you question it.
Mm.
I liken, when I, for example, for when, I discovered why I might not have known. What is that thing, that phobia, um, when people, oh God, it's slipping my mind, but it's imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Come on, every
Yeah.
hairdresser has imposter syndrome.
Mm.
And you know why? I had imposter syndrome. I remember showing up on the job for GQ, and this is a small part of what imposter syndrome is. But girl, they paid me so much money for like 2 hours of work, and I was like, damn, like I didn't even do anything. But what's really interesting is that as hairstylists, if you don't know how to do every hair texture, you ain't gonna never tell nobody that.
Mm.
Or if you do, you're gonna talk about it. You're gonna talk about those other textures negatively. And
Mm.
so, or you'll come up with every scenario as to why it is you don't know about that hair texture. Because hairdressers
Mhm.
are very ego driven. And so they don't oftentimes tell the truth about themselves, let alone the information that they have and how accurate or inaccurate it is. Well,
Mhm.
one of two things, right? Certainly, for instance, the African American diet, it's circumstantial. There's no
Mm.
facts based in it, right? We didn't get prime rib. We got hog maws and chitlins. And if there was in a garden next door, and so the great American diet is a soul food diet, and there may be some European influences, but everyone will tell you that if you had to adjust that, we discovered that you had to adjust your food or your recipes to be a little healthier, right? And hair care is the same. Like, okay, no one told us about kinky hair in beauty
Mm.
school. It was nowhere to be found, as I just talked to you earlier about. And so um at the time that probably early in the late 1990s, I did all the black models, supermodels like
Okay.
Kiara, Tamiko Frazier, and a whole slew of others. I worked at John Fried at the time, and
Okay.
uh, these are just some of the journeys that I've had. And so we use a dryer, whether it's to roller set hair
Mm.
or some twist or whatever. And there was a colorist at the time that had just come and started at John Frieden, and I heard some little complaints that I was using up too much dryer time, whatever. Big colorist, and so they came to me and said, hey, we need to talk to you. So like, and we did their white counterparts like
Okay.
Stephanie Seymour,
Right.
Cindy Crawford. You know,
Yeah.
you do those models at no charge because it's great to have them in your salon. And so I wasn't
Right.
charging them the black models that I did. So they came to me, they're like, hey, listen, we need you to start charging um, the models that you're doing because you're taking up too much time and space. And I'm like, but we don't charge their white counterparts, so why would we charge them?
Mm-hmm.
So I got fired
Mm.
the next week.
Ooh.
And, I could have gone to the press, but it wasn't time for me to do any of that.
Yeah.
And so I say all that to say is that you discover some things about your industry. Uh,
Mm.
whether, it's an adverse response to inclusiveness, right?
Yeah.
And you see some areas, and it's just like, so also at that time, it's just like, at the shampoo bowl, you do put a girl back in the shampoo bowl with shampoo and conditioner. You look at the hair with all that conditioner, all that on that thick hair. You're like, girl, your hair's not kinky. There's actually curl there. And I've
Mm.
always thought that
Mm.
session stylists were a little more intuitive because we have to show up on jobs with
Yeah.
everything in our bag and be able to change things in a moment to
Yeah.
off the chain look or wet look or this, that, or the other look, or bring out the rollers in the hair and all that stuff. If the
Mm.
photographer or if it's for one of those Condé Nast magazines, if they ask you to switch it up, you need to switch it up. And
Yeah.
so we're very intuitive in on
Hmm.
switching things opposed to salon hairdressers. Which I
Okay.
worked at in between jobs. So I knew both industries, both the culture of both. And so I discovered that simply putting water and conditioner on a woman with kinky hair yielded her natural texture.
Mm.
When are you ever able to see your natural texture? When it's sopping wet, bathed in conditioner, right? And so you see, and so, oh, well, but think about it. Historically, they've told Black women um, to wear styles that got them from shampoo to shampoo,
Mm.
right? And not to ever wet their hair. Well, that makes
Mm.
absolutely no sense. Why can't she wet her hair? Because she's
Mm.
Black? Because her hair is kinky? Because
Mm.
most of those women associate wetting their hair with washing it. And of course,
Right.
you don't want to wash textures that are naturally drier, but water never made anything dirty or dried anything out. So how would
Yeah.
water contribute to drying out textures that were naturally drier? You
Mm.
learn you learn in grade school that water is a source of hydration. So why would
Mm.
water be, none of it was making any sense. Um,
Mm.
Shampoos that bubble, lather, and suds. Well, okay, and you discover, back in the natural hair, beginning of the natural hair movement, sulfate free. Sulfate free was, we discovered,
Yeah.
okay, well then now everybody's using sulfate free. Well, sulfates were in dishwashing liquid. So that means before the natural hair movement, every freaking shampoo that we use was basically dishwashing liquid.
Mm.
And guess who those shampoos are great for? People with flat, straight, greasy hair. And if you have kinky or curlier textures, your hair already grows out of your head with volume and it's naturally drier. So why would you do
Mm.
something for another texture?
Yeah.
They weren't thinking
Yeah.
about you when they made those products anyways. So why are
Yeah.
you still catering to those brands that make shampoos? And like, if you did it because you don't maybe not know any better, if you did a line
Mm.
yourself, you would like, give me a gentle shampoo. I want a gentle shampoo on my line. But if it had bubbles, lathers, and suds, how do bubbles, lather, or suds deliver moisture? That's like
Mm.
believing that Dove has a half a cup of a quarter cup of moisturizer in their bar soap. Bar soap is bar soap. So why not think of skin or skincare? Have you ever heard of
Mm.
Cetaphil?
No, I haven't.
Cetaphil is like it's one of those drugstore um dermatology lines,
Okay.
very very clean and pure. And so Cetaphil is a cream. Have you ever used a cream cleanser for your skin?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So think about that same concept for the hair.
Okay.
So why not use a cream cleanser that doesn't bubble, lather, and suds, that looks closer to like a conditioner, but is a cleanser?
Mm-hmm.
Why not use that to clean textures that are naturally drier, that need detangling during the shampoo process, not matting up?
Mm. Yeah.
It's like thinking of your natural texture like your favorite cashmere sweater. And when you
Yeah.
start to learn about it, you start to fall in love with it. And
Mm.
it's about having a love affair with your hair texture. But if you have never been properly introduced to something
Mm.
or someone, it's hard to really fall in love unless you're lusting. But you get my point. And so
Yeah.
there has to be a lot of love in the education and aha moments on really taking the burden of a frustration off of women's shoulders, and showing them, oh, this is why you may have felt this way because of this, that, and the other. And culturally
Yeah.
get to the crux of how the industry wasn't thinking about them and now they are.
Yeah. And I think a big thing is like people make mistakes with their hair. And
Yes,
also, like I said, stylists make mistakes because
yeah,
sometimes it's because they don't know better or they haven't been educated in certain textures. And, there are things that we see over and over and over again happening to so many different people.
right.
Um, and so, like, what are some of the big mistakes that you see clients and stylists making when they're managing textured hair?
Um, Assuming that heat is damaging,
Ah, okay.
heat does not damage hair, people damage hair,
Yes.
right? Um, Again, using a shampoo that bubbles, lathers, and suds
Hmm.
on your kinky, coarse, coily, soft, frizzy
Hmm.
texture, um, or understanding that kinky doesn't necessarily mean coarse. Kinky can mean soft, fine,
Hmm.
thin. and fine or thick, or it can mean all the, just like straight hair can be coarse, wiry, and soft or fine.
Yeah.
There's all these subtypes. So one, investigate your hair while it has conditioner. Um, Not thinking about, so conditioners do one thing. Conditioners make hair soft. They don't deliver nanotechnology or protein or any of those things. They make hair soft, right? You try to sneak conditioner on a woman with fine straight hair, she will fight you. She don't want flat hair, right? Thick conditioners are great for textures that are naturally drier that also need detangling. So using a conditioner frequently. Understanding that wash and go styling, depending on your texture, if you're kinky or curly, if you're kinky, wash and go styling should be done daily, which is simply defined by incorporating your entire hair care and styling routine into your shower routine, right? Everybody has such adulation when it's time to take a shower. They're like, "Ooh, I can't wait to get in the shower." But when it comes to your hair, you're not trying to put your hair under there, right? Your scalp is probably the most neglected part of the skin on your body, and your hair never kind of acts right because it's always dry, right? So imagine getting in the shower and rinsing and conditioning your hair constantly. And finding a convenient time if it's not warm outside. Maybe you do it at night. You can sit under a dryer. But simply, like, what if you conditioned your hair all the time? What if you did exactly what they told you or you assumed not to do? What if you actually bathed your hair and conditioner every time you showered? That would have a really positive effect to your hair. One, your hair would not lock up. Also, assuming that kinky textures don't grow long.
Okay.
Everybody's
Yeah.
hair grows at the same rate, regardless of ethnicity or texture, which is about a quarter of an inch to a half an inch a month, right? And if you're someone with kinky hair who can't quite figure their hair out, it's always a challenge to get it longer because, right, you know your hair grows long because you see people with locks down to their butt.
Yeah. Yeah.
But think about it. Each strand on your head is not the same diameter as a lock. You can't break a lock, but you can break you can break a strand of kinky hair that's dry, that's been tangled and locked up because you kept it in a wash and go style for multiple days. And if you do a wash and go style and try to keep it in for a week like you do your straight styles, what do you think all the strands in your head are doing? They're starting to lock up and dry out. And when you decide to go through them and undo them, you're probably going to break them because dry hair turns to brittle hair and brittle hair breaks.
Yeah.
So it's the other thing. If say you could not, you don't want to commit to doing a wash and go style. Well, on your wash day, blow it out, right? And of course, let me go back. If you've been doing a wash and go style all week long, at the end of the week, your hair is never going to get grimy or dirty enough to need anything that bubbles, lathers, or suds. Your no sudsing cream shampoo will come into play. So at no point have you ever dried your hair out. It always stays moisturized.
Yeah.
It's convenient to do it in the morning and to sit under the dryer, then do it at night and sit under the dryer. It doesn't matter what time of the day you do it, that you do it, just that you do it daily.
And it feels,
and your hair now feels like, oh my God, like you know what your hair's supposed to feel like now, right? And you stop side-eyeing yourself every time you leave the house.
and like
So the flip
moisture
side of that,
feels.
say you did a whole week's worth of wash and go styling. Okay, you know what? This week I don't feel like being bothered with wetting my hair. On my wash day, instead of after I shampoo and conditioner, I'm gonna add gobs of leave-in conditioner in my hair. I'm gonna really overdo it, right? Because leave-in conditioners were meant to be left in the hair so they're lighter, so you can really add them in. And say you just want to be lazy with your hair, but you can just pull it back into a kind of ponytail or a top knot and keep it moving. Like take a blow dry with a comb attachment and gently detangle and blow all that leave-in conditioner into the hair. Add your favorite oils to your hair. Now you've got a base to snatch it back into a ponytail or to do a twist out, right? I don't suggest doing twist outs on wet hair because once that water evaporates, the hair is back to its dried out self and you don't have as much definition and you have a whole week with your hair now matting up. Just because it's in a twist doesn't mean it's not now swollen up and all the strands are there, right? See what I'm saying? And so no one looks at their hair as these made up of these each individual strands that represent the entire community of hair on your head. And so the objective is that each one of those strands to be the same thickness from root to ends so that you have a style that always holds. Split ends are tangles are an indicator that it's time to get a trim. If you're getting a proper
Mm.
trim, please, and don't get a curly cut. Anybody who's cutting kinky hair one coil at a time, how you can't cut what you can't see. So that's the other thing. It's a very gimmick driven industry, right? Because of what people didn't know. Like, oh, well, now I've lost so much of my clients. Let me start doing curly cuts, girl. And
Mm.
and they're taking dense, kinky, or curly textures, pulling them out and cutting a section at a time. Well, but you didn't cut all the hair.
Mm.
It's like going to the dentist and getting every other tooth cleaned. When she blows it out, you know, cutting your hair, there's only two reasons to pick up scissors: to maintain the health of each strand on your head and to
Yeah.
leave you with the shape or style of your choosing.
Mm-mm.
And if that stuff, and if you're not trimming the ends, then they're constantly shedding, and so it has never stopped growing at the roots. The
Yeah.
ends are now dried out. You didn't really cut them. It's hard
Yeah.
to shake. You see what I'm saying? So it just
Mm.
it's a cause and effect. It grows and it breaks. It grows and it breaks.
Yeah. And it's like that brittleness that people are used to, but almost
Yes,
to the point that it feels like, oh, it's normal. Well, actually, no, it should be moisturized. It's like figuring out how do you go about doing that in a way that's also sustainable, that you can do, that feels,
sure.
manageable, and teaching people how to do that.
Right. I mean, one of the things I learned, my clients who would bring over the years, my clients would bring in their mothers,
Mm-hmm.
and or their grandmothers, and she's there, she's 80, 90 years old. And I said, well, mother,
Mm-hmm.
got hair down, she got hair down here. I said, well, mother, what are you doing with your hair? I have a really bad Jamaican accent, but oh, I don't do anything. She says I shampoo every 3 weeks, and mind you, she hasn't had her haircut in 20 years.
Oh.
Um, I shampoo and condition every 3 weeks, and I blow it out, and I soft press it and put it back in this bun. Well, uh, listening helps to you to understand things that work.
Mm-hmm.
Remember earlier I said heat doesn't damage hair, people do. Like
Mm-hmm.
what this mother knows from her generation, one, she ain't walking around with no big old natural head of hair all over the place, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
they're the ones that they've kind of contributed to a lot of black women. Like, ooh, is my natural hair okay? Because they're just from a generation of black women who know that it's important to be put together, right? And so for her, this bun is put together and
Mm-hmm.
conservative, and she can manage her hair. She can't manage it if her hair is not blown out.
Oh.
She can't
Okay.
manage it and be put and feel like she's put together if her hair is not in this manageable state for her to handle it.
Mm.
You see what I'm saying? So what she does know what is that, and her hair's down to here. What she does know is that if she blows it out or soft presses it, not to make it straight, but to make it more manageable.
Mm.
What she does know is that she can manage her hair after she's prepped it for the long haul, right? And so those types of stories will help to kind of connect the dots and helping you and understand that, like, oh, if I just blow out my hair, if I don't want, say I don't want to do a wash and go style, and some
Mm.
women don't, and some women have their hair is just too thick to be bothered with doing a wash and go style and doing it
Mm.
frequently, and they haven't really kind of embraced that yet. Maybe on their wash day that they blow it out and press it. Um, and so I say for every hour that you take on your hair should get you a week out of a style,
Mm.
right? 3 to 4 weeks. All the protective styles, any style that doesn't require you to have to wet your hair.
Mm-hmm.
And that can mean a blowout, snatch it back into a ponytail, a
Mm-hmm.
blowout and a twist out, a blowout and a braid out, braids, wigs, or weaves.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, but I never suggest going past 4 weeks for any of those styles because that's about as long as your strands in your scalp can sustain that amount of stress or neglect before it bites back in the form of your edges being pulled,
Mm-hmm.
losing your edges, a bacteria at the scalp.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where all this black girl magic comes from, is when you understand your hair texture, braids, wigs, weaves, and all those things that black women are known to be able to do and switch it up like that can be done. Um, I'm a hairdresser, and so but more importantly, I love women, and I hate to see women angst over their hair. And I believe that particularly Black women should have agency over your hair. Your hair texture didn't come with a care tag.
No,
I'm the care tag.
no. Yeah, and there's like a lot of language around our hair that feels very limiting, like you said, like difficult or hard to manage
Yeah,
or
yeah, yeah.
like tough. And none of those things are like none of those words or none of those phrases are particularly empowering or make people feel good
Sure.
about how to manage their hair and learn how to look after it properly. So it's also like changing that narrative a bit and saying, okay, actually, it's something to be proud of. It's just not the image of beauty that's portrayed like regularly all day on an everyday basis, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it's an amazing texture to have. It's just learning to look after it.
Right, exactly. And that I think that's a real goal, is having that real affair with your hair, and learning to love it and know that, like, it's, you got thick, kinky, coarse hair, or thick, kinky, soft, thick, long hair. Like, how do you manage it? Oh, just understand a few things about your hair, and then you'll start smiling about it. Listen, some women, I don't even believe that I've come in over the years to see me. My first question is like, how can I help you? I need a haircut. I haven't had a haircut in a while. I says, oh, okay. So are you trying to grow it longer? Well, no, I just want it healthy. I said, well,
Mm,
a minute ago you said you've been wearing weaves and braids, for the last 4 or 5 years, and those are very long hairstyles. So
mm,
you have a right to have your hair long, and you can't get it long unless it's healthy. So
mm,
what's your blue sky? And some women don't even feel like they have a right to have it to be long.
mm.
And their main goal is that it's just healthy. Like, you can have more than that.
You can have both.
You can
You can
have
have both.
both.
I think for a long time people had aimed for length over health.
Oh yeah,
And so it's like the pendulum's kind of swinging in the other direction where people are focusing on health, but
yeah,
thinking that they have to sacrifice length when actually they can have both. It's just kind of
yeah, yeah.
understanding your hair and working with a stylist who can teach you that as well.
Right. And this is not the first natural hair movement. The first natural hair movement was out of the 60s and the 70s. And that was out of a guttural fight for rights, and celebrating Black beauty, right? And
Mm,
celebrating the enormity of one's afro. And back then nobody had lopsided, mashed up afro. It was always picked out, and it was always full and voluminous, right? That is
mm,
an afro is a form of a protective style. And I'm noticing more women are starting to embrace their afro, or understanding it. Um, and so I think there's these, and so when you think about, that first natural hair movement, even braids, like nobody wore braids for months at a time.
mm,
You got, some might argue through affirmative action, women of color, particularly people of color, women, could move into higher education, corporate America, and
mm,
that's where, I think that was where it kind of like fell off, right? Because now your mother, your grandmother, your aunt's not in your hair constantly. You're not about to
mm,
risk education and go into these white people's job with a Sunday press and 60% chance of rain. And so relaxing
mm,
became more convenient, right? Weaves became more convenient. Now I can
mm.
put this stuff away and not have to be bothered with embracing my texture, because this weave is going to last me 3, 4 months.
Yeah.
Braids are going to last me 3, 4 months.
Mm,
And that's when we first started hearing terms like no edges and hair loss amongst Black women, particularly in this country. And micro braids. It took 16 hours to put in.
oof.
Ain't
Yeah.
nobody, nobody's taking those out for another 6 months if she could spend 16 hours to put them in. You see what I'm saying? So we
Yeah.
really got away from embracing our texture, and I think as I think it was music that really changed in the mid '90s, late '90s,
Okay.
when artists like Erykah Badu and Jill Scott came about, right?
Yeah.
When they were natural, and
Hmm.
and if you remember, a lot of the magazines, a lot of the supermodels were being replaced by celebrities,
Yeah.
and you couldn't dictate to a celebrity how they showed up on a magazine cover because that was them,
Yeah.
right? And
Mm.
um and she's not changing her natural look. And so I think that was the first time that Black women started seeing different images of themselves rather than the usual supermodels that would wind up on the covers of magazines with weaves in their hair. Now all of a sudden it's like this neo soul, um
Mhm.
expanded images of themselves where it's just like, you know what, let me rock that, let me try to see what that's like. um
Mm.
but there's a lot of pain and that came along with women having the hurdles that they had to go over to learn their hair texture. And I still think
Yeah.
that it's hard. Some women have gone back to a lot of braids and wigs. Um, and so there'll never be a shortage of clientele for me because I'll always be here in open arms for you to discover your natural texture. To really have a love affair with it. And you have to meet women where they are, and have
Mm.
conversations with them to see how much they know, how much how much they're willing to do, um,
Mm.
and go and here they need someone like a hairdresser to go to walk that journey with them.
Yeah, and it's important to find the right person.
Yeah,
And I can imagine, having worked at some world-class salons like Oribe, John Frieda, you've learned in those environments where it's, giving people that education, giving people that peace of
right.
mind it's all about allowing them to walk in and walk out and feel incredible.
Right. It's
And
respecting their time.
yeah.
Listening to them. That whole term, I go get my hair did, is my least favorite term because nobody talked to them about their hair. They were just like, girl, do my hair.
Mm.
And what was happening underneath was not, and the hair wasn't necessarily flourishing, but she didn't have to think about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the stories that, and it's heartbreaking to hear the stories that every woman has been in a position where she had to go into a salon and like they didn't know what they were doing, or
Yeah.
they told them like, we can't do your hair after they've made the appointment. Um,
Yeah.
Countless stories. And so yeah, I really think it's about empowering women as a stylist and get over keeping secrets to your craft to yourself.
Mm.
Share that.
Yeah.
If she knows that you're being authentic and open and you're willing to give her recommendations, like, I don't, I have a Rolodex of people that if there are things that I can't do, I've vetted people to find out that I can find they can do something.
Yeah.
Um, so it's important if you're really here for women and you really love women that's what you base your profession on.
No, that totally makes sense. And I imagine like a lot of those experiences and things that you've seen is what led to you opening your own range of salons because you've got,
Oh
you
yeah,
have not one, not two, but three
I
where
never
you're
wanted
helping
to.
people.
I never wanted a salon. But all anybody asked me the year after we launched the brand, the product line,
Mhm.
what's your salon? I was like, shit, because I always worked in salons in between gigs, right?
Yeah.
Waiting for a paycheck, and so I was like, I always had a small clientele that I did at, whether it was John Frieder, Orbe, or Louis Zakari, and I was always so put off by the hairstylists in salons. They just love to complain and like their only reference of style was red carpet looks
Okay.
um and they love to sit in the back room and just talk shit and like and they're just ideal of like their real value and purpose um was just so limiting and negative. So when somebody talked about opening a salon, I was like, absolutely not. Like, and then I realized that like that might be an essential place to really create a real experience based off of radical hospitality and
Mhm.
simply look where I talked about before, like just look around you and see where they weren't getting it right. So for me, opening up the hair wheel salon was really a journey into creating a beautiful professional space like the white spaces that I had worked in that were far superior not only to them but also embraced everyone's hair texture, and creating an environment of stylists that I think I've trained 20 plus stylists over the last 13 years. And so that's where, I think we did $1 million our first year with
Wow.
with myself, a colorist, and an assistant.
Wow.
And so 13 years of that just got on my nerves because I discovered that like I was managing bad behavior, and most industries were changing with the new generation, or not even a new generation, but people who wanted to have already arrived. And
Yeah.
it's like you got to put in the work. And
Yeah.
so, as you well know, that big mega salon thing just is kind of an old dying thing, and people want to
Mm.
go, they don't want to listen to how they can improve themselves and get better. And, hey, your client didn't like that you were an hour late last time. And I realized I was like, hey, can I talk to you in the mirror? I was like, what is a common thing that I would say to people? Like, hey, can I talk to you for a second? I was like,
Yeah.
oh, right. Everybody that one that you pull in the back, whether it's, you're trying to get a manager to do it or hire a manager to really cultivate people, people just stop
Okay.
wanting to see how they could be better stylists. And
Um,
um, COVID was the perfect opportunity for me to divorce my staff and and go it alone, because I really got sick of managing bad behavior. I'm a stylist. I want to spend my last days really enjoying the experience that I created with my customers.
mm,
Not managing some other hairdresser and their lack of expectation or enthusiasm to, what God laid in front of them,
mm,
everybody's got that age-old question, like, what is God's purpose for me? Well, as a hairstylist,
mm,
it should be no mystery to you that it's the women that you come in contact with daily. And how do
mm,
you make a positive difference in their life to bring joy to them? And
mm.
that's your purpose. It's a no-brainer.
No, and I can imagine that's like really hard to manage lots of different people, different
Yeah,
personalities, lots of different skill sets. And I think one of the challenges for, I guess, all business owners is you have a certain expectation and a standard, and it's finding people that are willing to reach those so that everything that happens can be a reflection of you. And
right,
that I can imagine is like really hard in an industry that is also very creative when you've got people that have different visions for themselves.
right.
That must be tough. And for the stylists that do want to run a salon one day, what is the one piece of advice that you would give them?
That a salon is a calling card,
Mm,
right? Salons in general don't generate revenue, and the people in them generate their own income,
mm,
and whatever is left over pays the bills. So nobody's getting rich running, opening a salon.
mm,
And any salon owner that is not doing hair and making and generating revenue for themselves is ripping hairstylists off.
mm,
You as an individual, in order to make money and generate money, you have to actually be doing hair. But most of your overhead is covered by your inventory that your retail that you're selling, right? So the important thing is to understand that, and hairdressers are also, we're not salespeople, but there's oftentimes a missed opportunity in understanding the business that you've opened, that, you know, you're using product on women through, hopefully, that are being educated during this service. And the primary goal of this service is to educate. And yes,
mm,
she wants to know what shampoo and conditioner you use. Yes, she wants to know what styling products that you used on her.
Mm.
And so for me, um, understanding that value and that relationship at checkout time, you don't need to
Mm.
upsell her anything. You can simply say at checkout point, hey, these are the products that we use on you. Let me know if you want to take anything with you or not.
Yeah.
Because people hate to be sold to.
Mm.
My concept in a brand is, how would I want to be talked to? How would I want
Mm.
to be spoken to? How would I want to be marketed it to? Well, the
Mm.
whole marketing experience happened during the service. So if you were just running your mouth, not talking about her and her hair and her
Mm.
issues with her hair, then that's a missed opportunity, one, to educate her
Mm.
and on the products that we use. So it's a soft sale. You've done the work because you made it about her, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so at checkout, she can take what she wants. Everybody should take at least one or two products, and and that should your really your retail should really be the thing that covers your overhead.
Right.
But nobody's walking into the hair salon business that way, you know.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to find hairstylists that do what you do. Train them out of school. Train them
Mm.
as assistants, like, girl, like, you don't need a CD from a hair show to look. You like, this is hands on. Like, you just look right here, pay attention, bring in models, and
Yeah.
however quickly you can ace this, we'll put you on the floor. And so now,
Mm.
if the goal was to open a salon where you had square footage and you were thinking about growing, and
Mm.
well, then you need to fill those chairs. How many chairs
Yeah.
can you take over, and how many chairs can another stylist? And if you can get your other stylists in those chairs, then now
Mm.
you have a different price point, or a customer who couldn't afford you, but now they can afford one of your stylists.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's really how you build business in a salon, and you train your stylist in marketing, um, and just how to merchandise product, how to sell it. Don't be a salesperson. No one wants to be sold to. There's too many things out there to buy.
Yeah.
Simply ask her what her problem is, how you can help her,
Mm.
and get the same results that you can give her, how she can get them at home.
Yeah.
An
Yeah.
experience. And also be cognizant of her time, because most women are doing the damn thing, and if you're a black woman, you're really doing the damn thing, um, because of, you might have kids, you might have a husband, you might have your
Mm.
your own career, um, and it's a good time, but you can't overprice people out, and not provide
Mm.
those services. You know,
Yeah. It's important to create that balance. And I feel that on the flip side, there's how all of those things will help people run a really effective business
cool.
if they're thinking about opening a salon. But there's also the customers or the clients that we have who have the same question we hear over and over again is, how do we choose a great stylist that will
Yes,
do all of those things for us?
I just did a video on that,
Ah.
and it's certainly, if you don't receive radical hospitality, on the phone,
Mm.
or and when you walk into the salon, um, be aware. Um, Beware. Because if they're not thankful for you gracing their salon, I'm only
Mm.
open because of my customers. Um,
Yeah.
I'm thankful that they walked through my door and that they booked for me. They booked with me, um, and that they're happy to see me. Um, and so you learn radical hospitality in church. You should feel welcome, and seen and heard. And if you're not getting, you should expect a consultation, a long, extensive one, that's 5 to 10 minutes long. My consultations go 15 minutes sometimes. You can't take, and if you can't take someone if you don't have, you can't take multiple people if you don't have assistants.
Right.
Um, I don't know if necessarily you should look for that, but you certainly should be taken when you walk in. Um, I
Yeah.
think 10 minutes is maximum wait time to be seen. Um, and I think an hour is reasonable to go to a hair salon and spend if you're there for a haircut, a blow dry, or any kind of basic service. Uh,
Yeah.
right? I think an hour is reasonable. Uh,
Hmm.
2 hours is questionable. But
Hmm.
depending on the service, I think braids or weaves should
Yeah.
take 4 hours, maybe five at the
Mm.
maximum. Um, and that you're not, you know, and then also as a stylist that you should be like you should work like you have somewhere to go.
Mm. No, that's true.
But really, you want somebody who you can have a dialogue with about your hair.
Yes.
That's most important. That you feel as though you can talk, and that the person is welcoming to you. That's really the first I think thing anybody looks at is, or doesn't necessarily know to say, but you
Mm.
know, and just be observant.
Yeah. And I feel that that big thing of being able to have that conversation, that's what makes people feel comfortable. It's
Yes.
like it feels like a natural back and forth. They're
Yeah.
learning from this person. It feels like, oh, okay, they haven't worked with me, but at least the beginning is right, the chemistry is right.
Yeah. Yeah. Like they're not making you feel like, ooh, I don't know. Ooh. My least favorite thing is to rain on someone's parade. And I train my stylist and my colorist. If she comes in with some crazy ass hair color that clearly is not going to work today, well, don't tell her that. Like, oh my God, I love that. Um, okay. Well, let me ask you a few questions because I don't know if we're going to be able to get there today, but I love this look for you. And or
Mm.
what about if not this? Um,
Mm.
and that way, no one wants to be told no. And no, the customer is always right, even when they're not. And that doesn't mean that you it doesn't mean that you wrong them. It just means
Mm.
that your approach has to be one that you're with them. You are an advocate for them.
Yeah.
And you can tell someone they're wrong or without telling them that they're wrong.
Yeah.
But you just have to have some tact and you have to love people enough, especially your own people, enough
Yeah.
to, go down that rabbit hole with them when it comes to like them being seen. You're the advocate for them, right? Especially if you want them
Mm.
to be client. Um, I've had to get on the phone many times with my clients and ask when they were in such city, like, well, find out what they use. So get on the phone. I'll get them on the phone. It's like, hey, can you tell me
Mm.
this, that, and the other? Oh, okay. All right. So, I think that putting yourself out there, um,
Mm.
that's how you gain, you know, customers, and you gain the confidence of them. Once
Mm-hmm.
if once you're confident in the person who's doing your hair, you know, um, and you equip them with, some of the information, a lot of times my clients will be like, I'm visiting from Chicago. I love my hair. What do I tell my stylist to do? I says, well,
Mm.
if you're not sure, if you can't find a stylist, call up a place, um, and say, hey, my stylist is in New York, and they
Mm-hmm.
usually comb my hair out with a comb attachment before they trim the ends. They don't do it that so-called that curly cut or whatever. Does anybody at your place do that?
Yeah.
Right? Because if you come in with your natural hair, then they may not know what to do with it. But everybody,
Yeah.
most people, regardless of ethnicity or their group, um, everyone knows what to do with hair that's blown out or straight. They get intimidated when it's not. So,
Mm.
maybe you help them out, or and if someone can trim your ends without cutting your hair off or follow the line, everybody should know how to follow the line of a haircut.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, I think that there's just certainly you want to have some tact to be able to speak to hairstylists because ooh, we're a piece of work sometimes.
Well, I think that's all. I mean, it's been great hearing all of like your words of wisdom for both customers and for stylists that are listening. And I hope that they've gained, well, yeah, as much as I have in the hour that has flown by. Um,
I can't wait to come to London and work.
oh, I mean, when you're in London, I will be here.
Yeah, we have to
I'll be here
connect.
with
I
you.
need some. I want to do a pop up there,
Oh, okay.
so I
Well,
can
that
maybe enlist you to give me some advice on nice salons to go to investigate to do a pop up.
Oh, 100%. There are a few good ones here. And I mean, that actually leads really nicely into my last question to wrap us up, which is you are a busy man. You have a salon, you have a product line, you worked with some of the biggest celebrities there are. And I can imagine you've got a ton of projects that you are a part of. What is next for
Oh,
you?
um, oh well, a podcast.
Ah,
Um, what we just got our products EU compliant, so
okay.
we'll be able to sell in Canada and Europe very soon.
Amazing.
And one, my goal once that happens is to one do a pop up on a regular basis in
Mm.
UK, in London. But be, what really became an aha moment was doing a podcast. And we used to do an event with my friend Michaela Angela Davis in about 2014, 15, and we called it. It was a meetup that we would do with women and just talk about the cultural, um, dive down into the culture of natural hair and Black women, and we called it Tango Tales. So
Oh, I love
this
that.
podcast is going to be called Tango Tales and powered by Hair Rules. And it, I'm taking a playbook out of Wendy Williams, and my co-hosts are going to be my customers. And so, as
Oh.
you very well know, like once women get together and start talking about hair, everything is off the table, and you go down the rabbit hole with that, right? Uh, and then we will occasionally have a guest by satellite, whether it's Amanda Seals, Deborah Lee, um, and or yeah, anyone. And so um, the conversations that come out of talking about hair and leading into kind of just cultural relevant things that
Mm.
social justice issues that we all are all a part of and aware of. The conversations just go all over the place, and so
Mm.
um, I don't think anyone has harnessed that relationship. I think I think on occasion we'll have to do hard stops because that confidentiality thing that only a woman is going to tell her stylist and vice versa.
Yeah, yeah. We'll have a moment off camera, off mic.
Yeah, so that's next. I'm working on that now.
No, I love that, and I feel that there's a important thing in having these conversations like the one we're having now, the ones that you'll have on your podcast, is like rebuilding that relationship between customers and hairstylists. It feels a bit broken right now, and I think it's okay to say that. It does. It feels
Yeah,
a bit
yeah, yeah, yeah.
broken, and
There's
these
opportunity in anything that's broken.
yeah, there's opportunities to fix it, but we have to have these conversations. We have to talk it out. People need to feel like they're able to vent their frustrations, and we come to solutions and conclusions as a community and rebuild the industry in a way that really works for us. We have to treat
Exactly.
each other
Yeah,
well first
absolutely. Yeah,
before we can expect others to treat us well too.
absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, we got to love ourselves through and through, from the top of your head
100%.
to the bottom of your feet. Yes, all of us.
No, we do. And I mean, I can't believe an hour has gone by this quickly. But I just have to say a big thank you um to you, because I mean, you've achieved so many things and helped so many people with, their hair. understanding their hair. I'm sure like so many stylists have been better for walking through your doors and working with you and working for you. And that influence doesn't come lightly in an industry where, you know, it's hard to create change sometimes. So
Yeah.
we're really
But slowly
lucky.
sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, slowly but surely, but at least there is change. But a big thank you
Thank you,
for,
Jade. I love being on here with you.
oh, I really
I have a new
appreciate that.
connection to London.
Yes, and when you come over here, I will be here and ready and waiting.
Okay. Sooner than later.
Yeah, but thank you so much for all that
Thank you.
you've done in the industry, for the hour that you spent with us here, imparting knowledge to both like customers and for stylists that are listening. And what we'll do is for anyone who's listening, we'll add links to Dickey's website and his social media so that you can follow him and keep up to date with all the things that he's doing, as well as this podcast when it's ready to be released so that you can be some of the first people to know.
Cool.
And if you have any other like questions, then feel free to shoot them into us for our future guests as well. But thank you so much, Dickey. We really appreciate having you on today.
Thank you, Jade. It was a pleasure. I'll hope to see you again.